The World Sickle Cell Awareness Day is observed amidst challenges of COVID-19. Getting proper treatments for patients, 2 million in Cameroon, remains government's preoccupation. How sufferers survive and what treatment is available. Answers tonight. Poliomyelitis, the virus that causes paralysis, is easily preventable by the polio vaccine. In Cameroon, it is part of the immunization program, with the population expected to adhere to strides made will be highlighted tonight. The Cameroon Volleyball Federation is celebrated for its outstanding regional and international achievements. With the COVID-19 imposed break, federation officials and players opt for strategies to keep fit. Those were the headlines of the 7:30 news. Thanks for joining us.
The wearing of face masks in public places will be mandatory until further notice.
Welcome back. Today is World Sickle Cell Awareness Day, observed to support persons with inherited red blood cells disorders. It is celebrated on the theme Sickle Cell Disease and Acute Thoracic Syndrome Prevention in the COVID-19 context. With over 2 million affected persons in Cameroon out of the 150 million worldwide, appropriate medical care has been able to get patients survive. Joy Starter reports on how and what treatment is provided to sickle cell patients and how families assist them to cope with their pain.
Anne has watched her little boy Stefan go through the pains of being a sickle cell patient for over 7 years. Being alive is a miracle, she affirms, thanks to proper medical follow-up so far, which favors her child.
It has not been an easy journey. While my kid was 6 months old, one of the nurses in the hospital discouraged me from following up his treatment, saying he cannot survive. But thank God he is still alive today. He feels pains in the stomach, but we are coping.
Medics at the specialized department for the fight against sickle cell anemia at the Yaoundé Central Hospital say they receive many of such cases of the genetic illness. As the years go by, many are sensitized on the probability of procreating sickle cell children if they don't take the electrophoresis test before making babies.
Parents are more informed, and now people know they have to do their medical checkup before becoming a couple. This helps some who are already carriers to start their treatment on time.
Cameroon registers about 4,000 deaths yearly due to sickle cell anemia. The more reason health researchers advise constant medical checkup of carriers.
I would like to use this medium to call on the population to be blood donors because sickle cell patients suffer from shortage of blood.
Even though its treatment is still to be known, experts reiterate that it is important sickle cell patients observe dieting, drink a lot of water, and respect hygiene rules.
The symptoms of sickle cell disease range from episodes of pain to the swelling of hands and feet, frequent infections, and sometimes delayed growth. It is a major public health concern as the constant shortage of red blood cells could lead to death. However, with special attention, sickle cell patients can live long. Here's an excerpt of Dr. Michael Bitse in charge of sickle cell patients at the Cameroon Baptist Hospital in Yaoundé.
Baptist Hospital, Yaoundé. Sickle cell disease is taken care of by a team of people. There is a doctor in charge of a sickle cell clinic, and there's a nurse. And we meet every third Saturday of the month. And this meeting has been happening for more than 2 years now. Over the past 2 years, we have noticed that more people are coming. I've seen more than 90 people with sickle cell, close to 100. And the number keeps adding every day because the condition that has been there. We do preventive measures. That's the highest things that we do for them. We give them drugs to prevent infections like penicillin. We encourage them to take their vaccines. We give drugs to prevent anemia like folic acid. And for those that are eligible, we put them on hydroxyurea. It prevents their crisis many times. And lastly, we keep contact with them so that we can encourage, we can tell them when the next meetings are, and if they have any challenge, they get in contact with the doctor or with the hospital.
Sickle cell patients in the Littoral region have for the past years been receiving treatments at a specialized unit lodged at the Lakentini Hospital. The director of the unit, Dr. Charlotte Pose, outlines that given the special needs of sickle cell patients, they've been able to acquire adequate attention. However, the center is still in dire need of sufficient admission beds and appropriate medical equipment. Rosalind Fossa tells us more.
It's been 6 years now that sickle cell patients in Douala have been receiving treatment at a center dedicated to them. The Douala Lakentini Sickle Cell Center, named after a sickle cell advocate Emmanuel Bilong, resulted from a cooperation between some companies and persons of goodwill. This building is made up of 10 rooms, with each having 2 to 3 beds.
Patients come here when they have a rendezvous or when it is an emergency or not.
6 years after, the structure still provides care and treatment to sickle cell patients, but the state of the equipment and access to treatment is what remains a problem to the beneficiaries.
We have some companies that have been helping us with medication and vaccines. The hall reserved for intensive care is completely bad.
The 2020 edition of the World Sickle Cell Day, celebrated this June 19, is thus an occasion for the patients to make their voices heard as concerns their needs.
We need subvention for our medication and follow-up. Treatment should be free. We wish to have a national card for sickle cell patients.
The Douala Lakentini Sickle Cell Center, they say, will upgrading standard if the treatment of beneficiaries are facilitated and made accessible.
And now on to one of our top stories. Poliomyelitis is a major public health concern, and Cameroon has been working towards attaining a zero polio status. With a detailed immunization program, the virus has been considerably rolled back. But just how much has that been done? Tonight, our guest is the chair of the National Certification Committee on the Eradication of Poliomyelitis, Professor Tetanye Ekwe. Good evening, Prof.
Good evening, Ms.
Thanks for joining us on the 7:30 News.
I'm very happy to join you.
Poliomyelitis, a virus that causes paralysis,
Yes.
quite dangerous.
Absolutely.
Tell us about it.
You know that poliomyelitis is due to a virus which has 3 types, the type 1, type 2, and type 3. We have eradicated the first and the third types over the world, except Pakistan, Afghanistan, and 4 other countries as Cameroon, Nigeria, Central Africa, Republic of Africa, Republic, and South Sudan.
So type 2 is still in Cameroon?
This is what we was trying to show this regional certification commission. And let me tell you that you should know that when we give the vaccine to kids, the poliovirus enters the body, but this poliovirus is attenuated so that it could give immunity but not be harmful for the health of the child. But now, when this virus crosses over the gut, it is eliminated, even in the environment. So what we have to show to the Commission was, first of all, that there is no more wild poliovirus in our country. And this is absolutely obvious because, as we showed to this Commission, since 2014, we have not been able to find out any wild poliovirus in our country, even in the security compromised part of our country, far north, northwest, and southwest. Now, what the Commission wanted to know is whether our country is absolutely capable of detect any wild virus, poliovirus. Well, this has been shown absolutely clearly in the stools and in every investigation we have made. So what is also very interesting for this Commission is to show them that our country is capable of detect any acid flaccid paralysis,
okay,
which is a way to see whether there's still any poliomyelitis in our country. So it was a very, very.
That's quite technical. Now,
technical.
For the average Cameroonian, the average Cameroonian wants to know what happens now to the immunization program, because we remember that there was an immunization program. What happens to that immunization program? Does it continue? Is it still valid?
It's very valid and very efficient. We have shown to this commission that the coverage rate of immunization is absolutely good in our country. There is some parts of the country where we still have to make a lot of efforts to increase this rate. But let's see that in the overall country, it's very good, it's nice. Now, what we should know is that if the country is wide polio virus 0, what we detect now is that given the rate of immunity of children, due to the fact that the rate of coverage is not very high still, some parts of the country we have 60%, where we are expected to reach at least 80%.
Okay.
Because at 80%, we know that the whole community is protected. But in some parts of our country, we'll still have a little bit effort to do. This is why people should understand that we have no wide polio virus in the country. But what we have to now do is to increase the rate of the coverage of immunization, to lead our kids to immunization centers, health centers, every site where they are immunizing kids, and this would be capable of increase the rate of the coverage rate of our country.
There's been a misunderstanding between being polio-free and being zero polio. Could you tell us explain a little bit about that, because there are some people who have misconstrued the fact that the information that went on air, there is no longer any polio in Cameroon, and so parents don't need to worry. Could you clarify us on these two situations?
What has been shown is that we don't have any wide polio virus in the country. The wide polio virus is the virus which determines paralysis. But what we know is that when we use this oral polio virus vaccine, the kids are eliminating the virus in the environment. So to be protected, these kids should be very well immunized. This is the difference.
Okay.
We could still have what we call now the CDVPV's virus. That means the virus derived from the vaccine.
Okay.
These vaccines are expelled or are sent in the environment. But what is needed now is to get a stronger coverage rate of immunization of kids to let them be able to counteract.
You talked about 80%. So how can this be achieved in our communities?
This could be achieved. Thank you very much to raise that question. It could be attained only by immunizing all the kids in anywhere, any part of our countries. This is a good opportunity for me to ask the communities, you, me, you brothers, in every village, everybody, the traditional rulers, all these mayors who have been elected, should now take the vaccination as their own business. It's not only the business of the health, of the Ministry of Health. It's now the business of every citizen, every Cameroonian citizen. You should be able to ask any mother, any kid, is that child has got immunized? If no, please go and immunize.
Now you're talking there to officials. I want you to also talk to parents, mothers who are watching us right now, who are a little bit scared about taking the vaccine. What message would you have for them?
The message is this. The vaccination is the best tool to protect the kids against the diseases. If you don't immunize your kid, you are putting him at risk of developing all these diseases which could be avoided by immunization, measles, tetanus, and so on and so on. So my message to all the mothers is to say, Mommy, please take your kids to vaccination. And maybe this is a good opportunity to raise a question with the COVID-19. Yeah. You know that during the COVID-19 campaign, what we are using to say is that people should stay at home. But in fact, people should stay at home when they don't practice the, measures. The barrier measures.
So mothers can still go to immunization centers and have their children vaccinated regardless of the COVID-19 scare.
If they wash their hands, if they keep this distance between them, at the right as left part, before and in the area, there is no risk for them. And especially if they wear their facial mask. This is why we are really ask the mothers to not be afraid to go to centers to get their kids immunized, because the more the kids are immunized, the best they could be ready to counteract against the diseases.
Thank you very much, Professor, for those insights into poliomyelitis.
I hope that I've been clear for you.
Thank you very much. You definitely have been clear for every Cameroonian. On to other news. Cameroon has begun making arrangements for the total reopening of her airspace. The conditions for the reopening were discussed during the interministerial meeting chaired by Prime Minister Joseph John Goute yesterday. Tight measures shall be put in place to screen and to control all travelers when international flights resume fully. Christian Chatham revisits the deliberations in his report.
Yesterday's interministerial meeting examined the protocol which Cameroon is envisaging to control the movement of persons in and out of the country without exposing the nation to a second wave of COVID-19 infection when international flights resume. From the exposé presented by the Minister of Transport and after consultations with major stakeholders in air transportation in Cameroon, it emerged that the country is envisaging the presentation of a COVID-19 negative result attestation of not more than 3 days old for all travelers, as well as the setting up of rapid results testing sites in international airports. The confinement of piloting crews on transit in Cameroon and a systematic check of their temperature levels before every arrival and departure. Yesterday's deliberations also previewed a pedagogic role for the Cameroon Civil Aviation Authority. It will be expected to educate air transport companies on the necessity to alert the administration for any suspected cases of COVID-19. While Aéroport du Cameroun ADC will take measures to ensure that only travelers are allowed into international airports, the Ministry of Public Health is expected to establish a routine to be followed by all arriving and departing passengers, while the Ministry of External Relations will be expected to compose a list of accredited COVID-19 testing sites for European, American, and Asian passengers. Prime Minister Joseph John Goute has invited the different administrations to work tirelessly and make these measures concrete. The Prime Minister instructed the Minister of Health to accelerate the transfer of COVID-19 cases from hospitals to specialized treatment centers. To the Minister of Tourism and Leisure, he demanded a continuous inspection of anti-COVID measures in hotels and restaurants. He reiterated that barrier measures instituted on the 17th of March have not yet been uplifted and called on members of government to supervise their application on the field.
The United Nations Development Programme concerned about stemming the spread of COVID-19 in Cameroon has handed over protective kits to some primary and secondary schools of the Diocese of Yaoundé. The material received by the Catholic Education Family from representatives of the programme was hailed and described as a stage in time that saves 9 for the pupils who are back in school. Baldwin Sama reports.
An act of generosity from the United Nations Development Programme to the education family of the Diocese of Yaoundé, as for the first time, the UNDP hands over these anti-COVID-19 kits to be used by primary and secondary schools of the Diocese of Yaoundé to fight against the spread of the deadly virus. The education family thanks the donors for the gesture, who on their part promised to make available more of such kits in the future.
We are very happy to receive this gift for our peoples. It's an opportunity to fight against COVID-19 in our schools. We do it together for the living together in our school.
Secondary Education Regional Delegates for the Centre Region lauded such an initiative while calling on the different schools of the Centre Region to make good use of the kits.
We should bear in mind that negligence by a single individual can seriously harm the entire community.
The Cameroon Sickle Cell Disease Control Association has, on the occasion of the Sickle Cell Awareness Day, donated anti-COVID-19 material to sickle cell patients in the Centre region, as we should be seeing in the pictures, given the difficulties sometimes encountered by sufferers to get treatments and the cost of drugs. The aid is intended to alleviate the plight and to keep them protected from the disease. Beyond the donation, the members of the association give talks on how the disease can be successfully managed. Couples were also encouraged to carry out electrophoresis tests before procreation. As the world celebrates the Sickle Cell Awareness Day, health experts recommend that persons of that category remain vigilant during this COVID-19 scare. This is as a result of the weakened immune system. As the number of coronavirus positive cases increase in the country, there is need for them to remain protected. Baldwin Summer is at the Public Health Emergency Operations Center, now tells us what the recent figures are. Hello, Baldwin.
Good evening to you, Esther Kiman. Welcome to the Public Health Emergency Operations Center this Friday evening, where we continue confirming this persistent increase in the number of persons tested positive for COVID-19 in the country, given that as of this Friday, we have 11,281 confirmed cases of Cameroonians who have so far been tested positive for COVID-19. In the country, we have 7,634 Cameroonians so far who have recovered from COVID-19 in Cameroon, and 300 Cameroonians, ever since we have the spread of this virus in the country, have died of COVID-19. And we often say that all these figures concern the different regions of the country affected as far as the spread of COVID-19 is concerned, and public health experts of the Emergency Operations Center say the figures can change at any point in time because they receive data or figures from the different focal points talking about the spread of this virus from the different regions on a daily basis. And during the traditional press briefing, as you said a while ago, they laid emphasis on some of these diseases, comorbidities that easily affect some persons who are suffering from COVID-19. For example, if an individual is suffering from COVID-19 and equally suffers from an illness like sickle cell, diabetes, or hypertension, such an individual can easily suffer from death or can die for COVID-19. And they have used the opportunity to raise awareness as far as the dangers for some of these diseases are concerned. And that is what we'll be looking at with Agnes tonight, who is a virologist, doctor. We have noticed that we have some of these comorbidities, these diseases that if an individual who is tested positive for COVID-19 is suffering from, he can easily die from COVID-19 due to such diseases. Let's get to know more about such.
Globally, we have now we have more evidence on what's happening with COVID-19. So there are some patients who stand a high risk of mortality. Firstly, the older patients, those who are aged 60 and above, they have a high risk of mortality. Also, amazing, men also stand at a high risk of mortality as compared to women. Then thirdly, also, what we really experience even in our context, we have realized patients with any comorbidity stand at a high risk of mortality. For example, if you are obese, it means you have a body mass index above 30, then you have a high risk of mortality with COVID. If you also have cardiovascular diseases, if you are hypertensive, if you also have a chronic lung disease, or if you even have also a chronic kidney disease, you also stand at a very high risk of mortality. And similar evidence has been observed in our context, including those who are sickle cell patients in our context. So for this reason, if you have any of those comorbidities, please make sure you stay alert. At the very first symptom, you need to get closer to the nearest health facility.
And Dr. is it possible for an individual, for example, who is suffering from any of such diseases and is tested positive for COVID-19 to survive?
COVID-19 has a critical zone from 1 to 10 days after symptoms onset. Within this period, the earlier you get to the health facility, the earlier you have a higher chance of surviving. And that's why we keep advocating, if you have any of these comorbidities, the earlier you have the very first symptoms, don't wait too long, go directly to the very first health facility. Testing is free, treatment also is free, and we have realized the earlier we test, the better we limit the risk of mortality.
For having accepted to be a guest on the 7th as you heard it from our guest Esther, men have a high risk of, as far as mortality of COVID-19 is concerned, more than women, and public health experts have used this opportunity to remind us to continue respecting the different outlined measures by the government to limit the spread of COVID-19 in the country. As of this Friday, we have 11,281 confirmed cases of persons tested positive for COVID-19 in Cameroon, 7,634 persons who have recovered from the virus, and 300 Cameroonians who have died of COVID-19 in the country so far. Back to you, Esther.
Thanks very much, Baldwin. We'll now take you to Parliament, where the bill on the June 2020 ordinance to amend and supplement some provisions of the finance law of the Republic of Cameroon for the 2020 financial year has been scrutinized at the National Assembly. The bill, which reduces the 2020 state budget from 4,951.7 billion CFA francs to 4,409 billion, was defended by the Minister of Finance, Louis-Paul Motaze, before the Finance on Budget and Committee. Details in this report. The amendments to the 2020 finance law has been solely prompted by the coronavirus pandemic, which by all means invalidates the macroeconomic assumptions as well as the budgetary and financial conditions considered during the preparation of the 2020 state budget. The 542.5 billion slash from the original 4,951.7 billion CFA francs thus became imperative.
We are facing a very difficult, very severe crisis, not only as far as health is concerned, but also in the domain of economy. And this is why the head of state has taken this ordinance, so as to see what are the credits that can be allowed to all the sectors.
Before the Finance and Budget Committee members, the proactive relief measures to fight COVID-19 to the tune of 116 billion CFA francs and other provisions were defended to get a realistic budget suggested by the head of states.
This budget will be executed if the situation doesn't go in a very critical way. That means that we hope that the pandemic will go to the end and that we will master the situation. This is what we are working for.
The main innovation of the ordinance is the creation of a special appropriations fund with a package of 180 billion CFA francs to finance the special National Solidarity Fund to check the coronavirus spread and its economic and social impacts. In other news, members of the National Commission for Medical, Pharmaceutical and Odontostomatological Training in Cameroon have examined the quality of training offered in the country. This was during the 8th session via video conferencing chaired by the Minister of State, Minister of Higher Education, Professor Jacques Famen Dongo. During the deliberations, it was resolved that emphasis will henceforth be laid on the handling of epidemics and pandemics like the coronavirus. We now take you to the Adamawa region. Lecturers are ongoing in School of Geology and Mining Engineering in the Adamawa region. During a visit to the 10 departments and different laboratories of the institution, the University of Ngaoundere Rector, Professor Ufe Chinje Melo, praised the level of respect of COVID-19 barrier measures, as we hear in this report by Ellis Waji Bangmia.
The School of Geology and Engineering of the Ngaoundere University went operational some 9 years ago and has so far been training professionals to develop the mining and petroleum sectors. Within the campus today, measures to stop the spread of the coronavirus are strictly respected. Lectures are effectively going on. At every corner of the campus, there are buckets to wash hands. During a visit to different laboratories and amphitheaters of the school, the rector of the Ngaoundere University rejoiced over the level of practical and examination sessions taking place.
The training of mining engineers in Cameroon is a reality. They have 10 departments which covers all the different disciplines. They have 5 laboratories that are operational. The government is taking the existence of this school very seriously because it's one of the sectors that we need for economic development.
To improve the learning conditions, a new site for the school will soon be completed.
All the main structure is in place. It's just the finishing. The school is on, is functioning, is operational, is giving the results that is expected. Now, in the matter of completing that building, which has not been abandoned, because that's the impression they give, it's not been abandoned.
The School of Geology and Mining Engineering of Menganga currently has close to 1,000 students and has so far graduated over 600, excelling in the engineering sector in and out of Cameroon.
Projects under the Ministry of Housing and Urban Development. Minister Celestine Kecha-Kutes gave the warning during a 2-day tour of infrastructure that will host the African Nations Corps and the Shan in the West region. Cynthia Saptala has the details.
This roadside vendor, found at the Gendarmerie roundabout in Chang, capital of the Manuel Division, says the years of grappling with the dust and mud from the main roads are over. Small businesses like hers and other inhabitants highly appreciate the construction works undertaken by the Ministry of Housing, which will boost hotel, catering and tourism sectors of the community.
Chang has been a nightmare ever since we had very bad roads. And then these roads have been constructed just around the main streets in Chang. People are now able to move in and out easily and without actually having a lot of problems.
The potholes are no longer there, and the mud we used to have has greatly reduced. The major roads have been handled and they are quite appreciable.
It was the same opinion gathered from the population of Mbuda. With the rehabilitation of access routes to the MTN Stadium, some of the inhabitants expressed satisfaction with these development projects.
At first, we were in darkness, with thieves constantly attacking us. This was initially a bus station and dumping ground. Today, we have electricity, thanks to the renovations done around the stadium.
After the 2-day tour, Minister Celestine Kecha-Kutes sat down with contractors for final observations to companies falling behind.
For those contractors who are wasting again our time, call them to come back on the field and work. And after 2 or 3 weeks, if they are not there, we'll take all the solution to make sure that those roads are achieved.
With the upcoming international sports competition, the minister was firm all reconstructions on parking sites and green spaces must be completed in time.
In other news, separatist fighters in the Northwest region have been enjoined to give peace a chance and to drop their weapons. The Northwest Regional Coordinator of the Disarmament, Demobilization and Reintegration Center, Sixtus Gapsa, made the call recently during the press briefing as he outlined the socio-economic benefits of the structure. Ngonige Swaibo Shari has the details.
Created in December 2018 to receive and train repentant separatist fighters in gainful economic activities, the Disarmament, Demobilization and Reintegration Center in Bamenda, the DDR, is today living up to expectations.
We have been able to reintegrate 32 ex-fighters. These ex-fighters are currently working
with Camtel agencies all over the country. In the center, we provide enough security. We give them shelter, we give them 3 square meals a day, and we carry out training.
The usefulness of the center has equally been confirmed by the ex-fighters who are there.
We have some trade that we are practicing, like agriculture, piggery, we have poultry, then we do sports, computer studies. We have even religious studies.
In the light of this, the Northwest Regional Director of the DDR Center has enjoined other separatist fighters who are still in the bushes to drop their guns and join the center for their own good. The regional coordinator has also disclosed that their major problem of accommodation is being addressed by the government.
Hierarchy is currently building a befitting DDR center very close to the airport on a surface area of 14 hectares. As I speak, 2 dormitories of over a capacity of 300 is already ready.
The DDR center of Bamenda, which has so far received 150 ex-fighters, is currently hosting 113 of them.
On today's advertorial, Orange Cameroon is resolved to provide quality and increased internet connectivity to its customers. It has also taken the engagement to finance the construction of schools throughout the national territory. And this was in the course of the official launch of its distance learning program by the Director General, Frederic Debo. Colette Jani has the details.
As the world fights to contain COVID-19, the national battle against the virus got a boost from Orange Cameroon, who made a donation of medical and sanitary kits worth CFA 100 million francs to the Ministry of Public Health.
From the beginning of the pandemic, we decided to do something different with the government. So, first of all, we put the ringback tones. When you call an Orange customer, you have the mesure barrier. But at the same time, we think it would be important to invest with the government in some equipments. We invest more than 100 million CFA in terms of equipment, oxygenator, aspirators, and 40% are given now, and the remaining 60% will be given in the next 5-6 weeks.
As an extension of the steps taken to implement the social responsibility policy of the company through La Fondation Orange, the Minister of Public Health, Manauda Malachi, said the package will help the government to disinfect school campuses and support the health system to stem the spread of the novel virus.
With the Orange Foundation, at the level of the group, we decided to make a special effort for Cameroon and to bring some equipments, masks, gloves, special wearings for the people in the hospital. And this equipment will come by next week for a value of 80 million. So we think it's a role of Orange to be close to the population. We are here from 21 years now, and when we have this sort of problem, we have to be here. And we are very happy to be able to deliver today, and Orange cares about you. I think it's more important.
With over 21 years of existence in Cameroon, the giant telecommunications service provider through La Fondation Orange has been working closely with the government of Cameroon to improve the health, security and livelihood of Cameroonians.
And sports, in a countdown to the International Olympic Day, where you focus on one of the most successful federations in Cameroon, that is the Volleyball Federation. It has to its credit several regional and international trophies thanks to its talent detection policy at the base. Today it is facing the COVID-19 imposed break, but just what measures have been put in place to keep the players active? Baldwin Summer spoke to the federation's president, Serge Abouem, and now reports.
It is one of the most successful federations in the country today, the Cameroon Volleyball Federation, with its different international and national successes during this confinement period, like other federations, has seen her activities affected by the COVID-19 spread.
Since March, we suspended activities such as the sectoral competitions. Till date, we have not resumed as we respect government barrier measures and those of the International Volleyball Federation.
Volleyball players of different levels have been involved in sensitization campaigns against COVID-19.
Some of our players have posted sensitization messages on social media on the need to stay home and to be safe.
The different youths in the different volleyball training schools have received some anti-COVID kits and foodstuff to permit them cope during these difficult moments. The Federation has equally received from our partners some anti-COVID kits and equally signed an agreement with the Association of Sports Journalists in Cameroon to help send across through the social media for the next 4 years anti-COVID messages by some volleyball players at home and abroad.
And that report ends this edition of the 7:30 News. In another 30 minutes, we'll be in the company of Karine Olivia Bit for the news in the French language. I'll be back tomorrow at 7:30 p.m. God willing, thanks for watching and stay tuned to our programs on CRTV and CRTV News. Good night.
Each of us must comply with the measures that have been taken.